Major funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was provided by
(1993), the anniversary of the insurgency against our queen and the participation by the United States in the loss of our direct government over ourselves. Kanalu is right there on that front line, exactly where he belonged, right there near the center of the picture, in front of television cameras, in front of thousands and thousands of people. He was in that front line because he belonged there, and everybody knew that the future of the Hawaiian community, the caring for that historical memory, it was in that frail body and very, very powerful mind. And I do believe that in his heart, Kanalu saw his own life and the life of our people as mirror images of each other.
Everybody loves the hukila, where the lao lao is the cow cow at the hukila.
Both of my grandfathers were American. Both of them were in the U.S. military. One of them, named Harry Johnson, married Susan Kalepa, a pure Hawaiian woman from Lahaina, Maui.
Well, his father was a well-known beach boy who gave up being a beach boy to take care of his family. Worked very hard as a plumber.
Being my dad's sidekick, riding around in his truck to check jobs, to order material. It was a ticket to some new adventures. I think it made me a more well-rounded local boy. For a while, every summer as we were growing up, the cousins would all play and live with each other during the summer. And there were mango trees to climb. If you were hungry, pick a mango or whatever was growing in your yard.
Kanalu was born in 1954, and I think about this family as a working class family. Even the place that he lived in Kapahulu, that had been created as a working class neighborhood.
The schools taught us that Western ways of thinking and being were very positive, and you add on your Hawaiian stuff in certain times in life, like when you want to sing or when you want to express hula. But other than that, you know, get on with life as an American. I got away one day on August 14th, 1969, with my friends from Puckey Park, and we went to cool off and swim. And I guess I was exasperated about a lot of things that day, but one of the things I didn't think about was the depth of the water and being careful. And I did a deep water dive into about 4 feet of water.
He hit his head and he felt the shock, and he started to float out. He was floating out, and his friends thought that he was just kidding them, and they started throwing the little pebbles at him. Come on, George. Oh, come on, George. And there was no way he could tell them, because he said he felt right away he was paralyzed.
She had called, you know, and then said, oh, he has a broken neck. I guess none of us had any idea the extent of the injury, or, you know, what's going to become of my brother at that point, if he was going to even survive.
I met Terry at rehab. I went down to his room, and before I got into the room, there was this tray of food came flying. I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I didn't want to give him a, oh, okay, how's it? Then he went, how's it? And I backed out. He was doing all kinds of stuff and swearing at the nurses, and doctor told him, do this one more time, and you're out of here.
October 30th, 1969. Awake, screaming and calling for nurses. Very impatient, as usual.
November 25th, 1969. Calling and yelling for nurse again. Press my head, squeeze my head. Naughty tonight. Refused supper.
Swore at nurses using 4-letter words.
Drank water, spat on bed.
Reminding all that they are his paid servants.
One day he was yelling at the nurse, and there's this old man that was in the next bed. And he goes, boy, the nurse make you like that? And Terry goes, no. And he goes, then why you talk to them like that? And he goes, I don't know. He says, boy, you be careful. Watch out how you talk to them. You did that to yourself. And he goes, I know. When he went back to school, and his friends were always so friendly, and they helped him with the wheelchair, took him up the stairs and everything.
The kind of trauma imposed on our people could be compared to the trauma of Kanalu's accident. You could say that it really changed the trajectory of where we were headed as a nation, as a people.
The overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom was never discussed. I don't remember a Hawaiian history lesson at all that talked about Native Hawaiians in a political struggle to save their country, ever. I remember the word abdicate for the Queen, but the full explanation of why and what the context for it was, never given. It was as if she gave up the country without a fight. And always the better thing was that the United States came here.
There's a long history of different kinds of stereotypes and caricatures that were utilized against Hawaiians by earlier American missionaries who had first began arriving here in the 1820s. And so that becomes a trope that continues to be used for Hawaiians, that savage, lazy, incapable of self-government, all kinds of ways in which Hawaiians were cast as inferior.
The real poignant and very emotional time came symbolically in 1898 on August 12th, when the Hawaiian flag was lowered. And Lawrence Macaulay Judd remembered seeing the Hawaiian flag droop at Iolani Palace as the transfer of power happened. That would be an emotional counterpoint to the wailing that actually went up throughout the islands when the flag of the Hawaiian nation came down. Hawaiian people expressing in a Hawaiian way their disfavor for what has happened, because they had done everything in their power not to become annexed, not to become a part of the United States of America. And failing all of that, they reverted right back to tradition to express, for the last time, an emotional side of that political choice, which was the lamentation chant, the awe, to ho'ue'ue, and to actually say, alas, all is lost.
The Hawaiian Renaissance period was this major awakening because it was a moment where Hawaiians could embrace being Hawaiian and say they're Hawaiian and be proud of it. There were social movements going on throughout the US that were influencing young people. The anti-war movement, the American Indian movement, the Black Power movement. In Hawaii, the hokulea was taking off on its first sail to prove that Hawaiians and other Polynesians were capable of non-instrument navigation. And then you also had the kaho'olawe movement, which was seen as the Hawaiian occupation of Alcatraz.
The 1970s brought a political side to being Hawaiian. That was the first time where I felt a collective sense of who we were and what we needed to do. People started talking about caring for the land the way the ancestors did. We're losing too much with this thing they call progress. These were new ideas. Some of them were frightening in a way, but something also drew me toward it. Maybe it was my own issues with authority. And so that was cast in a native Hawaiian consciousness. And by the 1970s, enough of a Hawaiian identity came forward in enough of us to say there are some deep-seated wrongs.
We are not American! We are not American! Say it in your heart! Say it when you sleep! We are not American! We will die as Hawaiians! We will never be Americans!
No longer will Hawaiians sit idly in masses and eat the very humble pie that their ancestors choked on for decades. No longer will the natives of these islands back down simply because a haole system is a formidable foe. Growing numbers of us will resist at every opportunity anything that even faintly resembles the rhetoric of the white supremacist.
June 11th, 1992, we were going to hold a vigil prior to the 1993 100-year anniversary of the overthrow. And the idea was the vigil would create a spiritual connection to the nation and for the people. I was with Kanalu. At that point, we were told anyone who remains on the palace grounds is going to be arrested.
I stayed It was going to be beneath the dignity of the day that we commemorate Kamehameha's honor as a warrior and someone who values peace. So the choice to be on the palace stairs was ours.
And when we got to the steps, the police panicked. And so we got to the base of the stairs, and of course, Kanalu couldn't get up. So he powered down all of his chair. And once you power down the kind of chair he had, you're not gonna move it. So we started chanting, and the next thing I know, I was getting slammed on the ground, and Kanalu, they didn't know what to do with him. Because they couldn't move Kanalu's chair, they pulled him out of the chair. For somebody who's a quadriplegic, the chair is like an extension of your body, and you're connected in different ways to take care of all your bodily functions. And when they pulled him out, it was almost like, it was almost like ripping him apart from himself. Because literally, it could have killed him.
I stayed at the palace because of civil disobedience, because it was my way to show that if I, a person with a physical disability, could care enough about his ohana who were there peacefully that day, then maybe people will get the message that this is not about radicalism, whatever that means. This is about the rights of Hawaiian people to self-govern. I realized that in a way the Hawaiian community was, in a sense, historically and culturally challenged, spiritually disabled, yes, broken in many ways, but in recovery.
Who is better positioned to notice that?
No pun intended, right?
But you.
Catch this for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The simple matter of how you come to school, how you get dressed, how you deal with a common cold, that people never, ever, most people never have to worry about, think about. But it's a real huge challenge for someone with disability such as he lived with. It wasn't something he complained about. The experience of being visibly disabled, long way pre-Americans with Disabilities Act. This was pre-handy-van. This was pre a lot of the things that people with disabilities take for granted today.
Where your training dollars are given back in the form of disabled people who have jobs who pay taxes. And it far outweighs the number of dollars spent on training when you can put somebody to work.
He was involved as an advisor in a program for disabled students on campus. And I think he found that satisfying, but I think he was looking for something more. And I think at that time, he was looking to history as maybe that's something more.
There was little of substance going on for me, and I was concerned, but at a loss to do anything about it. Pacific history taught me to sit up and take notice. Nothing short of a miracle.
We were really treated to, I think, the final sort of dying embers of the old colonial kind of mentality in which Europeans and Americans had essentially mastered the knowledge of the world. And so you were always getting that particular perspective. Hanlon was really the first teacher who began to suggest that this was a completely ridiculous notion that people from other cultures and from other civilizations had their own way of understanding the world. And if you really wanted to understand their history, you really had to try and understand it from their perspective, from their words, from their texts. And if they were Pacific Islanders and they didn't have literal texts, then you had to understand it from the songs they left behind or the stories they told. You had to take that seriously.
Amete aloha mai ta ohana mai. Amete aloha mai ke tua ana.
Kanalu and I both took classes in Hawaiian chant, and he talked about how this was something that needed to be brought back into our day-to-day lives. And once you start integrating that back into your life, then it becomes something that's living again and real.
Hawaiians must write their own history and never stop doing so. Our place, our native voices, are at the very head of the line. It is genealogy that makes Hawaiians a people, identifiable as their own kind, their own ancestral grouping, their own lahui.
Kanalu brought genealogy back into the work of doing history. He was doing a project that was about his own family lineage.
For Kanalu, the message over and over again was, you need to know who your ancestors are. You need to know what their stories are. To see ourselves as a part of this long chain of people, chiefs of gods, who have lived and acted in these islands.
April 27th, 1992. Status of dissertation. I was hospitalized from December through February for surgery on a pressure sore. Related problems on my spine, lungs, and stomach persist to date. I'm being seen by 8 doctors who assure me that while surgery took its toll, rest and time itself are what I need to regain my former strength. Please know I am being as diligent as possible under the circumstances, and am still highly motivated to complete the dissertation.
You open these wounds when you go into the Hawaiian past. It was really important for him to be a healing presence for his students.
That's kind of what I'm trying to do today, is use the metaphor of anatomy to look at an institution.
And also because he was always going through various aspects of his own physical disability that required him to be constantly thinking about healing and wellness and staying well.
Is that you're not just sitting back waiting for something to change you, you're willing to change yourself. More and more of our lives are committed to showing American patriots that Hawaiian patriots feel as much for their country as American patriots do. It's not a matter of malice or hatred anymore in my soul. It's a matter of, hey, you know what, you're proud of your country. Yeah, me too. My country is Hawaii.
That last time in the hospital, it wasn't looking real good. I wasn't seeing those signs that he was getting well again.
It got really bad because it affected his ability to speak. He couldn't actually talk. And I had visited him a couple of times in the hospital. And he was making it really clear that this was a final straw here. I got the call from, I think it was his brother, saying that Terry had decided to pull the plug and that he wanted his friends to come by and say goodbye. He had made that ability to speak into something sacred and wonderful and powerful. It didn't just empower him, it empowered thousands of other people because of what he said. And he got to the point where he realized that if this was gone, then he was gone. He's out.
saw himself always as a student and a teacher at the same time, that, you know, it was important to make this knowledge live again by passing it on from one generation to the next. I think that he saw it as an essential part of being self-determining, sovereign people.
He had a big vision for a nation, but I think that wasn't as important as him seeing the nation come out of somebody. The feeling of power over your own destiny. I think he just wanted to see his Hawaiian students have that light inside them.
Major funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was provided by